Out of curiosity, how many people watching this video played the Rundown Alpha level way back in 2019? And for those of you who did play it, how many of you managed to actually complete it? For those of you who are unaware, I'm asking this since this level here, Alternate R3C1, is a remake of the original R3C1, which that level was also a remake of the only level from Rundown Alpha, which was the very first rundown this game had ever seen. Now, I didn't play that level myself since I only got started around Rundown 1, but I heard that most people who attempted Rundown Alpha failed many times over, which is completely fair seeing how you were a brand new player being dropped down into a C tier mission for your very first expedition. Now, thankfully, fast forwarding to Alternate R3C1, most of you who are attempting this level are probably not brand new to the game. And even if you were, you have something that players back then didn't have. And that would be me to guide you along the way. Hello everyone, Professor Scalar here, and welcome to the Alternate R3C1 level guide. Just like always, we're starting off with the recommended loadout, and this one might look familiar to some of you, because I'm recommending this time around you bring a bio-tracker, a mine deployer, and 2 mid to long range sentries, so either burst and or sniper sentries. And C-Foam Launcher has not been getting that much love in Rundown 3, but hey, I feel like most of the levels you could do just without it, and the few instances where you would want a C-Foam Launcher, a C-Foam Grenade or 2 will probably do the job just fine. But when it comes to this loadout, I'm recommending the bio-tracker because in C1, you're going to deal with a lot of enemies in some of these zones, and not all of the zones are all that well lit, so having a bio-tracker for that information can help out. We have to deal with multiple scouts, we have to deal with a zone that is mostly covered in infectious fog, and later in the level, we're going to have to deal with a charger air alarm as well as chargers who will be sleeping in zones that are not very well lit whatsoever. So being able to actually know that there's a ton of enemies in front of us instead of running headfirst into a wave of chargers can save us from a pretty sticky situation. As for the mine deployer, we're going to be using this throughout the level, mostly for the alarm doors as they will help out quite a bit, especially since some of them we could just use a C-Foam Grenade or 2 to reinforce the doors to make more enemies pile up on it, but also it can help out a little bit for the ending of the level or maybe even the middle point of it. If you walk into a room that has a ton of enemies and you accidentally wake it up, or you just can't be bothered to sneak your way through so you just want to pull it, just have the enemies come after you, shut a door behind you, mine it, and that mine will deal with most of the enemies for you. Just make sure you don't accidentally use a door that's crucial for an upcoming alarm if you decide to try something like this. And then last but not least, when it comes to sentries, we want some extra firepower for the alarms, or in cases where we do wake up rooms with a lot of enemies, or even for the air alarm to help us deal with those chargers as there will be a lot of them coming after us. And I recommend either burst or sniper as we want sentries that are just in general good at dealing with enemies and also have somewhat decent rate of fires. Personally, I lean a lot more to the burst sentries for this level as I tend to position them in close to mid-range combat areas. So sniper sentry I feel like falls off a little bit in this level, unless if you're either really active with the bio-tracker and just tagging enemies as often as you possibly can, or maybe you just position the sniper sentries a bit further back, that way they have more time to actually shoot at enemies, even though, again, I lean more towards burst, but it's up to you and your team ultimately which one of the sentries you wish to bring with you. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to collect a DNA sample from a specific HSU, and this HSU will always be located either in Zone 17 or Zone 20, and you and your teammates are going to be starting off inside Zone 12. In here, there will be some enemies to deal with, there will be some resources, as well as fog repellers, which I highly recommend you pick up as many stacks as you can get, and there will be a terminal which I recommend you use to not only query that HSU so you know which one of the 2 zones you have to go to, but also use it to check Zone 10 and Zone 11 for a colored keycard, as you're going to need this keycard in order to progress further into the level, and it will always be in one of those 2 zones. So make your way through, deal with all of that I mentioned, and then when you're ready, head over to the eastern side where you'll be able to find the security doors to Zone 10 and 11, do the full team scan tied to whichever one of the 2 you have to head into, and then go into that zone. As for Zone 10 and 11, they are pretty similar to each other. There will be a singular scout patrolling about in one of the many different rooms. There'll be quite a few enemies, both smalls and big, so be cautious of them. And there'll be resources for you to collect as well as that colored keycard. So make your way through the zone however you see best fit, grab all those resources and the key, and once you have all that, leave the zone, go back to Zone 12, and head to the far western side where you'll find the security door to Zone 13. Plug the color keycard to the door and that will unlock it, and now you have access to the Class 4 alarm that's tied to the door. But before we pull that, we obviously want to set up a few defenses. So as you can see with the map overlay, there are 2 different possible spawn locations for these enemies, and there are a few doors they could potentially go through, but if we keep all 4 of them shut, then the southern enemies will only ever go through this door to get into the room, and the eastern enemies will only ever go through this door right here. So make sure those 2 doors are mined, and then if you have a C-foam grenade or 2, C-foam the southern door, as most of the time they will go for that one there, but do not C-foam the eastern door. I find that in most of my runs, very few enemies will ever actually come from the east, so just simply mining the door will be good enough. As for your sentries, you can have 1, if not both of them, on the catwalk in the room facing towards that southern door, like you could see me doing. If you want to place both of them, I would recommend 2, as there is a lot of tool refill in this level. But once you have all your defenses set up, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once you fully finish this alarm door, pack up that eastern mine if it did not explode, pack up your sentries, and then you can head into Zone 13 itself. Inside of Zone 13, there are going to be a lot of enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as a single scout patrolling about, and the first half of the zone is almost completely covered in infectious fog. So what I recommend you do is just simply pull that first big room so all the enemies come to you, deal with them, and then you can use fog repels to more safely traverse through the first room so you're not getting a ton of infection. Look around for boxes or lockers, as there usually will be a few of them in here, and then just continue making your way west throughout the zone. Once you keep making your way, you'll find a terminal in a room as well as a staircase that will take you up above out of the infectious fog. And I would highly recommend that you use that terminal to check where all the resources and the color keycard are inside of this zone. If you don't want to waste fog repels on the terminal, by the way, you could just simply hop on top of it, slightly shimmy down it, and you should be able to actually access the terminal without gaining any infection whatsoever. Now, once you have found out where everything is, you can just continue using fog repellers if you have to backtrack a little bit through the infectious fog, or if everything is to the west of you, or at least everything that you care about is to the west of you, just go up the staircase, get out of the fog, and then keep going through room by room. Deal with the enemies, grab those resources, and as you make your way through, you'll get to the far western room, and in there you'll be able to find 3 different security doors. One to the south, which leads you to Zone 14, one to the southwest, which leads you to Zone 15 and gives you access to Zone 16 and 17, and one to the north, which leads you to Zone 18, which also gives you access to Zone 19 and Zone 20. Now, when it comes to these security doors, the southwestern and the northern ones, those are different routes. You're only going to go down one of those 2 depending on where your HSU is. So if the HSU is in Zone 17, you're heading to the southwestern door. If it's in Zone 20 though, you're heading to the northern one. As for that southern door to Zone 14, this is an optional resource zone that just simply has a full team scan tied to it, but we need to unlock it by using the color keycard that will always be located somewhere inside of this zone. So if you want to go in there and get a ton of resources, you need to make sure you get that key. But before we head in there, we need to deal with either Zone 15 or 18, as both of those security doors will have a Class 5 alarm tied to them, and we don't want to open up a new spawn location. So as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for enemies, so this door right here, make sure you shut and mine it, and if you have a C-foam grenade, go on ahead and use it on that door as well. When it comes to this middle door right here, shut this and mine this. We are using a funnel strategy, so most of the time enemies should not go through this door, but I have found that even with a funnel strategy, sometimes they'll just naturally run near the door, which will cause them to lock onto it, and then they'll break it down, so we might as well be safe and have a mine there to blow up any enemies that might try to do that. As for the northern and the southern door, this depends purely on which route you are taking. If you're going to Zone 15 down to the southwest, you're leaving that northern door open, as that's the furthest one away from us, and your sentries will be up there to deal with enemies, and then the southern door you're going to want to shut. If you're heading to the security door to Zone 18 up to the north though, you're going to be doing the inverse, where you keep that northern door shut, and the southern one is the one you're going to leave open, and your sentries will be over there. So once you have everything set up however you need to, you can get to work on the scans, and once you finish the alarm, deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive, and then you can either head into Zone 15 or 18 if you're skipping the resource zone, but if you're heading into it, we're going to head down there first. So if you haven't already, plug in the color keycard, do the full team scan, and then we can deal with the mess that is Zone 14, because there are a ton of resources inside Zone 14, but there's also a ton of enemies, including a scout, and this zone only consists of 2 different rooms. And the thing is, the enemy density is so large that it's sort of hard to actually sneak your way through here. I've tried many times over and over again to just sort of melee kill everything without letting anything wake up, but that can actually be pretty difficult to do, especially in the room that actually has the scouts in it. So what I recommend you do is take advantage of the fact that we preserved some of those doors from earlier and we have some explosive mines, and just simply pull the first room, fall back to the nearest door in that southeast corner, make sure the other 2 doors up north are shut, and then just shut that door behind us as everybody gets into it, place a mine or 2 on it, and then we just let the enemies pile up on the door, most of them explode, and then we just have to shoot the few enemies that are still alive. Then when it comes to the second room, we're just doing the same thing. We're going to open up the door that divides the first and second room, shoot to pull the room, shut the door real quick, place a mine on it, and the mine will deal with most of them. If this is not possible though, because one of those 3 doors in the previous room did get broken down during that alarm, then it's no big deal. Just make sure that you're falling back and letting enemies come to you, and you place down both of your sentries. That way we have 4 people and 2 sentries shooting at the large horde of enemies coming after you. Once you deal with all of the enemies inside zone 14 though, you can go about, collect all those resources, and once you and your team are good to go, head back to zone 15 or 18, open up the security door, and continue down your route. When it comes to the 2 routes you'll be taking, they are incredibly similar to each other, really the only differences being the room layouts themselves. So when it comes to zone 15 and 18, you can expect to see a few more resources as well as sleeping chargers, and that's actually going to be the theme for the rest of the level. Every zone you go into, so 15, 16, 17, or 18, 19, and 20, the only naturally sleeping enemies you will see will be small chargers, as well as a scout, which will always be located inside zone 16 or 19, and a scout that will be located inside zone 17 or 20. So just make your way through zone 15 or 18, deal with the chargers, grabbing the resources. At the back end of it, you'll find a security door to zone 16 or 19. Both of these are just going to be full team scans, so do the full team scan, head on inside. Zone 16 and 19, pretty similar to each other. More chargers to deal with, a single scout patrolling about, more resources to collect, not really anything too special I need to take note of, so just continue to make your way through. And at the back end, you'll find the security door to zone 17 or zone 20. And this is where things get incredibly annoying in this level. So these 2 security doors will have an error alarm tied to them, and this error alarm will spawn in about 3 chargers roughly every 20 seconds. However, approximately every minute that the error alarm goes on for, another charger will be added to the wave. Thankfully though, this only caps out at 6 chargers. So after a few minutes, you're going to have 6 chargers roughly every 20 seconds. Although that is still incredibly annoying. It's not a whole lot, but chargers are a bit tankier, they are a lot faster than regular strikers and shooters, they do more damage, so you want to make sure that you get the rest of the level done as quickly as you can. So what I recommend you do is before you activate that security door, go to the doors that are tied to your room, shut them and mine them, that way the first wave will more than likely blow up to the mine. Maybe place down a few other mines throughout the rest of the room if you have an abundance of them, and then you could also place down 1 or both of your sentries, that way as enemies are trying to come at you from behind, they are getting shot down by the sentries. Then you and your team are going to sort of split up a little bit. This is very situational as zone 17 and 20 are quite a bit different from each other, but I find that probably the easier thing to do is just have 2 or 3 people focus on clearing out all the enemies inside of the first room, especially at that scout if it is there, as you do not want to wake it up, while 1 or 2 people just sort of defend from behind. Then, as the people who are heading into the zone push further ahead, the defenders want to make sure that they are also slowly following behind them. That way, as they go further in, they don't have to worry about waves spawning in front of them. Because if the defenders are still all the way outside, the wave could spawn off of them on top of the people who are heading further into the zone, which can then cause a bit of an awkward situation. So make sure everybody is healed up as much as you can before you activate the door, make sure ammo is distributed, and once you and your team are good to go, activate the security door, do the full team scan, and then just have some people go in, start dealing with the enemies as quickly as they can, either by melee or by shooting, while some people defend, and just work together as a team. Look around, there are resources inside the zone as well as a terminal that you could use to ping the exact location of the HSU. It's actually pretty nice because inside zone 17, that terminal is in the first room, and zone 20, it is in the second room. If the scout triggers or a bunch of chargers wake up, just make sure you're grouped up and you're not isolating yourselves, and just keep on going through. Eventually, you'll be able to find either the HSU or the terminal. You could ping the HSU's location, and once you find the HSU, you can initiate the full team scan tied to it, and as soon as you finish the scan, your extraction scan will appear back at the beginning of the level in the first room you drop down into. So you're going to want to finish the scan, deal with any of the chargers that are right there in your face, pack up your sentries, and just start making your way back to the beginning of the level. Try to be as quick as you can because at this point you're probably getting 5 or 6 chargers every 20 seconds, which will drain your ammo quickly. But make sure that if a wave spawns in front of you, you're not just trying to run through it, you actually blast your way through, deal with the enemies, and just keep on going. Just be careful because obviously you don't want the ones from behind catching up. As you make your way through doors, you can shut them behind you. I do not recommend you mine them though, as you don't want to kill the enemies, because if you do, there's a chance that they could respawn further ahead of you. So just keep shutting doors behind you, keep making your way through. When it comes to the infectious fog inside zone 13, just run right through it. Don't bother trying to slow down and throw fog repellers. And once you get back into zone 12, go into your extraction area, you can place down some mines, place down your sentries, and then get ready to hold out. Be warned though that the moment you step into the extraction scan, it's going to cause a proper extraction alarm to initiate, which will spawn in even more chargers. So at this point, you're going to have a lot of chargers just constantly rushing you down. So hold out there for a bit. The scan thankfully does not take too long. As long as everybody's there and you have your sentries as well as a little bit of ammunition, you should be fine. And once you get the scan all the way up to 100%, you are done and you have beaten alternate R3C1. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R3C1 is a remake of one of the few copycat missions from the original Rundown 3 that I actually enjoyed quite a bit. When I first played through the original R3, I was disappointed that many of the levels felt like easier versions of the Rundown 2 levels. However, R3C1 didn't disappoint me like that even though it was a copycat mission, since there were a lot of differences between it and the original. And fast forward to today, and I'm still not disappointed by the alternate version of R3C1, as a lot of the nostalgia moments from the original level are still present in the current one. The chilling screech after opening the Class 5 alarm door, the optional resource zone filled to the brim with enemies, which is a beautiful sight if you have the bio tracker, and that terrifying charger error alarm at the end of the level that makes you really want to GTFO ASAP. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks of this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which as always I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Until next time, we only have one more alternate Rundown 3 level left to complete, so make sure you and your team are fully prepared for it, and hopefully, I'll see you all in the next video.